taking you and your brother out when I had the chance.
You should've. Where you going?
Episode 4 of Raising Kanan Season 5 just got its official title, Pawns and Rooks, and everything about that choice of words is deliberate, because this show has spent 3 episodes positioning every single character on a board where the next move is going to cost someone everything. The trailer just changed everything fans thought they understood about where Kanan's head is at. Is Kanan using Tiana to dismantle Rack's entire Manhattan operation from the inside, or is his plan something far more dangerous than even Stefano realizes? Will Jukebox survive the consequences of her deal with Detective Garcia, or has she just handed the one person who could destroy her family the exact leverage he needs? Is Taz the wild card that breaks Kanan and Breeze's partnership wide open before it ever fully consolidates? Is Rack's Manhattan move the masterstroke that saves her, or the overreach that finally brings the Mafia down on her with no way out? And is Episode 4 the moment this final season stops building and starts burning everything to the ground? Every single one of those questions has an answer, and this breakdown covers all of them. If this channel has been delivering the breakdowns fans need every single week, and it has, then hitting that subscribe button and leaving a like right now means this conversation never stops. Now let's get into it. The single most important moment in the Episode 4 trailer is the shot of Kanan and Tiana, and the way Mackay Curtis plays that scene tells the entire story without a single word of dialogue. There is something genuinely chilling about watching Kanan look at a woman the way he looks at Tiana in that trailer. Because fans who have followed this show since Season 1 know that Kanan Stark has never been the kind of person who uses intimacy casually. He is not Ghost. He is not Tommy. He has always been a young man who feels everything deeply and expresses nothing at the surface. So when the Episode 3 ending drops him into a late-night scene with Tiana, one of Flossie's escorts who is quietly running drug product for Rack's new Manhattan operation, the audience's instinct is correct. This is not personal. This is chess. Stefano walked into that conversation with Kanan and laid out exactly what Rack is doing with Flossie in Manhattan, expecting Kanan to feel nothing, because Kanan told everyone, including himself, that Rack is dead to him. However, the situation is far more complicated than it appears, because what Stefano did not account for is that Kanan saying his mother is dead to him and Kanan allowing his mother to build a new empire directly in his orbit are 2 entirely different things. The trailer makes it unmistakably clear that by Episode 4, Kanan's deception of Tiana is no longer a question, it is escalating. That word in the official synopsis is doing enormous work. Escalating means the plan is already in motion. Escalating means Tiana has already given Kanan something, and he is pressing further. And escalating means that somewhere in this episode, Rack is going to feel the first tremor of something going wrong in the one place she thought she had built safely away from her son. The most likely explanation for what Kanan is doing with Tiana is one of the most coldly calculated moves the show has ever given him, and the consequences for Rack's entire Manhattan operation are enormous. The evidence is right there in what fans know about Tiana's position. She is an escort working Flossie's network, and she is one of the runners moving product through Rack and Marvin's new business. The most logical conclusion is that Kanan is not simply gathering intelligence. Kanan is building a point of control inside Rack's supply chain that Rack cannot see coming because she has already decided that Kanan is focused exclusively on Queens with Breeze. That assumption, that her son has moved on, is the exact blind spot Kanan is exploiting. Fans who remember how John Gotti used inside sources to monitor and ultimately control competing operations in the original Power will recognize this playbook immediately. And if this theory proves correct, that by the end of Episode 4 Kanan has a direct line into Rack's product flow without her knowledge, then the consequences are not just strategic. They are personal in a way that will hit Rack harder than any bullet ever could. Because it means the son she raised in this life learned every lesson she ever taught him well enough to use them against her. However, unfortunately, Kanan's deception carries a risk that the trailer makes impossible to ignore. Tiana is a person, not just a pawn, and the moment she realizes what Kanan is doing, the fallout does not stay contained. But the Tiana storyline raises an even more dangerous question about Taz, because Taz is the variable that nobody in this power structure has fully accounted for. The evidence points to Taz reaching a breaking point that has been building since Kanan first stepped into Breeze's world. Breeze's right-hand man has watched Kanan absorb the space that was his, the trust, the proximity, the influence, and Taz has not been quiet about his resentment. He already physically confronted someone who suggested Kanan had taken his place. That is not a man who is processing his emotions healthily. That is a man who is one bad conversation away from doing something that cannot be taken back. The trailer for episode 4 shows Breeze and Kanan moving with real confidence, expanding their Queen's operation with the kind of synchronized energy that makes them look genuinely unstoppable. However, unfortunately, every structure has a fracture point, and Taz is the fracture in this one. The most dangerous thing about a displaced loyalist is not that they become an enemy of the person who displaced them, it is that they become a weapon for whoever finds them first. If Stefano or Rack's people get to Taz before Kanan realizes the threat he represents, then Breeze and Kanan's entire operation has a compromised node they cannot see from the inside. And in a season where showrunner Sasha Penn has promised that every question gets answered, including the devastating question of how Kanan eventually kills Jukebox, Taz's trajectory carries weight that feels like a setup for something irreversible. The trailer then pulls focus to the storyline that has every longtime fan of this franchise holding their breath. Jukebox, the official synopsis for episode 4, confirms that Jukebox's misstep leaves her under threat. And that word, misstep, is carrying enormous narrative pressure. Fans watching episode 3 saw Jukebox back Detective Garcia into a corner, threaten him, and then watch him flip the table and name his price for staying quiet. The price Garcia named is not yet fully revealed, but what is clear is that Jukebox agreed to it, which is why she is now working at Marvin's bar, because she needs money. And she needs it without Rake finding out why. The tragedy of Jukebox's situation in this final season is something that hits differently when the audience already knows her fate. Hailey Kilgore plays Jukebox with an intensity that makes every one of her survival instincts feel completely earned. And what the trailer suggests is that the misstep referenced in the episode 4 synopsis is not a mistake of judgment so much as a mistake of trust. Jukebox has decided to manage Garcia herself, quietly, without bringing Rack or Kanan into it, and that decision to handle something alone is the kind of choice this universe has punished every single time a character has made it. The consequence chain is already visible. Garcia has leverage, Juke needs money, Marvin is the bridge. And somewhere in that triangle is a moment where Garcia realizes he can take more than he initially asked for. However, unfortunately, the episode synopsis tells fans directly that Jukebox ends up under threat by the end of the hour, which means whatever the misstep is, it comes fast and it lands hard. While Kanan, Breeze, and Jukebox dominate the trailer, there is another storyline quietly intensifying in the background that every Power Universe fan needs to be watching closely: Stefano Marchetti and the Mafia's next move. Tony Danza's portrayal of Stefano this season has been one of the most quietly unsettling performances in the entire franchise, because Stefano is a man who has built his entire identity around being untouchable. And Rack Thomas has now humiliated him twice. She survived his threat. And then she found a loophole in Manhattan that Pino himself refused to shut down. When Stefano went to Pino expecting his fellow mob boss to cut Rack off, and Pino refused because Rack is bringing business, that was not just a setback. That was a public fracture in Stefano's authority, witnessed by the people who matter most in that world. The evidence from the Episode 4 trailer suggests that Stefano's response to that humiliation is to escalate the pressure on Kanan to handle Rack directly, which creates an impossible position for Kanan. Because moving against Rack's Manhattan operation is one thing, but Stefano's version of handling the problem is almost certainly not the surgical intelligence play Kanan is running with Tiana. Fans believe that Episode 4 is the episode where Stefano's patience runs out entirely, and the violence referenced in the synopsis, Rack's war with Kanan, Breeze, and Stefano, grows increasingly violent. Shifts from strategic maneuvering into something far more direct and far more deadly. What makes all of this even more significant is the connection to the question that has been hanging over this entire final season from the very first frame, and that is the question of how Kanan Stark, who right now in Season 5 is fighting alongside Breeze to build something, eventually becomes the man who kills Jukebox in the original Power. Sasha Penn has promised this season definitively answers that. Every move Kanan makes with Tiana, every conversation he has with Breeze, every moment Jukebox takes a risk to protect the family rather than asking for help, all of it is feeding into a trajectory that fans of the original Power already know ends in a way that is going to be genuinely devastating. The Power universe has always understood that its most powerful dramatic move is not the surprise, it is the inevitability. Watching Kanan become the man he was always going to become, while knowing exactly what that man eventually does, is one of the most quietly brutal storytelling exercises on television, and Episode 4 is one of the last chances this series has to pull back before the final descent begins. After everything the trailer for Episode 4 has revealed, the escalating deception of Tiana, the violence spreading between three warring factions, the threat closing in on Jukebox, and Taz simmering in the background like a lit fuse, the one question every fan is focused on now is the simplest and most important one. When does this episode actually air? Episode 4 of Raising Kanan Season 5, titled Pawns and Rooks, drops on Friday, July 3rd, 2026, on STARZ. The episode will be available on the STARZ app at midnight Eastern and will air on the STARZ linear channel at 8 p.m. Eastern that same evening. With only 8 episodes in this final season and the series finale locked in for August 7th, 2026, Episode 4 is the exact midpoint, the moment where every chess piece lands on the square it will occupy for the endgame. And based on what this trailer has shown, the board is about to look completely different by the time the credits roll. The Power universe continues beyond Raising Kanan with Origins and Legacy both in production, meaning the story does not end, but this chapter, this version of Kanan Stark, closes on August 7. Based on everything the production has delivered so far, the wait between now and July 3 is going to feel considerably longer than 1 week. Now the conversation moves to the fans. Is Kanan's plan with Tiana truly about dismantling Rake's Manhattan operation from the inside, or is there a part of him, buried under all the cold calculation, that is still trying to find a version of this where his mother does not end up dead? And is Jukebox's misstep in Episode 4 the moment this show begins building toward the answer to the question fans of the original Power have been dreading since Season 1 began? Can Jukebox still be saved? Or has this season already decided the answer is no? Drop those thoughts in the comments right now, because this debate is already happening, and the channel wants to hear exactly where the community lands on it. And if this breakdown delivered, if this is the kind of breakdown that makes Friday nights make sense, then a subscribe and a like takes 2 seconds, and make sure the next one is waiting before Episode 5 even drops. The video on screen covers everything else fans need to know before July 3.